Good morning. This is Alice Lovelace coming to you from the Artsxchange, and I am so excited to be talking to Marty Pottenger this morning. I met Marty at Alternate Roots many decades ago and was immediately blown away by her incredible writing skills, the beauty of her writing, but also by the audacity of the art projects that she undertook. This is a woman who went and did what we all said we wanted to do, which was to take art to the workers, to lift up the lives of workers and show them the art within their own lives and the things that they made, the daily tasks that they undertook, and turned these things into art and did things some artists only dream of. Marty, I'm so happy to have you here this morning.
It's so great to be here, Alice, because it's with you and because it's a great show and a nice, I want to say meaty topic, but we'll say a vegetably delicious topic.
Right. Well, when I met you, you were working with you were doing construction work yourself.
Correct.
And you were building this. One of the things you were doing is doing this project with construction workers, talking about the art and the beauty of building and the physicality of the work and the beauty even in that. And I wondered if we could start off maybe talking about how that project came to be.
Great. I worked in construction for 20 years, starting in Florida, in St. Pete, Florida. And it was, and I loved trying to build things. I was too young to succeed much, but even when I was, 4 and 5 and 6, I remember trying to build with the tools. But somehow I ended up not getting confused and remembering from the time I was very young how powerful performance and what I am, for about lack of a better word in English, calling creative engagement. And the earliest memory, and I'll say it quickly because there's so much to connect about. I was about 1.5. I was definitely able to walk. I was in diapers, and my mom, who was a really challenging person to live with, was walking through the living room in a super blue funk mood. And I grabbed a yellow wastebasket and like a cheap dime store one, and put it upside down on my head and did a little soft shoe version of my bare feet. And she stopped in her tracks and cracked up laughing. And I really do remember thinking, wow, this is powerful. This stuff is powerful. And, I watched her go from, trouble to laughing. And that, I think, seed only grew. And so I've been an activist for most of my life. I got blessed with being born in the time of incredible humans and opportunities like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and James Baldwin, who I only learned about later, but you could learn about him your whole life, right? And then in New York City, Audre Lorde, once I got there, and Jewel Gomez, and just amazing people, many of them Black artists and thinkers and leaders. And and then I was active in the lesbian movement, and we had all these issues around separatism and the women's liberation movement, and all these issues about is it inherent, what are we going to do, and major fights. And I just really had to face the fact that I thought performance and what happens in a theatrical space when live performance is happening. But I want to say, a concert is live performance. There's a lot of live performances. There's something about what theater, we'll define it a bit broadly, brings, that there's some part of us that is engaged, that is unlike any other place. And I when I give talks, I'll say I challenge anyone here to think of a more painful experience in life than theater when it's going badly.
So you've been making theater all your life, is what you
I have been, and I've realized it's never that way.
In making theater is like building something. It is a construction job as well, with all the multiple moving parts. So,
Yeah.
so not only did you do this thing with construction workers, but then you went and you worked with Portland, Maine, and you somehow got the entire. You worked with the entire city, with the mayor, with the different departments, and were able to go and talk to all of the workers, and to bring the. I think it talked about issues of racism that had been embedded in the city, and they wanted to use these stories to help lift up and encourage people. And
Yeah,
I'm just amazed at your ability to do these things.
I think partly it's having a hard childhood. I actually think if you get to do the healing work, it puts you in a place where people can sense something without a lot of being spoken. They can sense that even if they think you're strange or crazy or weird or different, there's something that they can tell that's there that is trustworthy, right?
Yes.
And then I have three kind of operating, thoughts that help me get out there when I'm scared. And that is that, one, to remember that people want to do big things. People want to make a difference. Two, that people are willing to take risks, like be almost every person. I mean, hundreds of people have been in performances with their own stories that I've helped craft and direct, but they almost to a person knew the one thing they were sure of is they'd never be in a performance ever. And meeting me, they were like, listen, I'll talk to you, but I'm not going to be in your show. Totally not. Absolutely sure. And the mayor of Portland was an African-American woman who grew up in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And she told me the week before we did it, during the workshop, I am not going to be, you don't get it. I'm not going to be in your performance. And it's online. You could see it. It's a show. It's 3 words called Homeland Security. And it's this amazing collection of wise, brilliant people, which include her and a homeless man who was currently homeless, Billy Wolverton, who's living in a tent out in the woods, and an elder South Sudanese leader who's made his home in Portland, Maine, and a Mi'kmaq indigenous woman. It's just this amazing collection, and you're hearing their actual stories about the impact of 9/11 on them, right? 4 years after it happened. And so it's just so clear, Alice. I mean, you know this. People are brilliant, and they forget that. And it helps to be reminded, and it helps to remind each other, which the best way to do that, I feel, for me, or where my interest lies, is to let people share those stories with each other and make every piece of the building. You said it's about construction. Make every piece meaningful, right? So even if they just, one of those cops just comes to one story circle and hears a story, won't even talk, just hears a story that he didn't hear, said in kind of a person's own voice because someone's listening. And that's the third thing I remember, is that listening is the most powerful tool we have. And a lot of people are saying that. And I think that's where a lot of hopefulness can lie these days. But it actually is. It's not just not something politicians just do on a listening tour. It's actually, if you can just listen, you're being rewarded in such deep ways. That's not always easy.
No, the Portland Press Herald said about that play, Homeland Security, that it's moving, honest, vital, a true reality show, because it's drawn directly from the lives of the people speaking their own truths. But there must be, you have this special quality of being able to engender in people a sense that they can trust you, that you're going to take care of their stories, that you're going to be honest and truthful with their stories. And because it's the only way I can explain your ability to get police officers and veterans, and you get the National Guard involved. And you do something that we talked about in many different strategy sessions in the arts, is how to get working class white men involved in the arts. And you do it.
Yes, that is true. And partly I grew up in a community that had working class white men in it. And it wasn't at all uncomplicated. It was quite complicated, but I got to see the damage. I got to see the desire to make things better for the people around them that they considered their people. I got to see what a hard working, everybody works hard out. So I don't have to tell you that. And they certainly don't work any harder than anybody else, but they do work hard. And I got to see the ways that society, that the way classism sets them up to be discounted and ignored and not respected, right? And certainly given the short end of the stick. So I have these imaginary conversations in my head with kind of like angry white men we have all around us these days, and working class men, right? I mean, not entirely, but they're fueled by wealthy people, I think, wealthy men, but they're the actors, the performers are mostly working class. I just say, you're right to be mad. Like, you're right, you got screwed. But how did you end up choosing this guy? Like, you've got decades of choosing people who were conning you, who were straight out lying to your face. And I don't understand that part. So tell me about that part. So then if I can stand to listen, that would be one of my questions, is how does that happen? And of course we would disagree about how we're characterizing it. But I guess I just start by saying, tell me about what's going well in your life. What's hard? Where could you use a hand? Who do you look to? That's one of the things I start with, Allison. Any project, any place I go, is I'll ask if it's an actual project, or it may become a project. The performance project, I'll ask people, who do you go to? Who do you look to when you have a problem? And that leads me to the people that others actually trust, right?
Yes.
And then to build whatever relationship is possible with that person. And I get a friend out of it, right? I learn a lot. I was thinking about doing this with you ahead of time and was thinking, I'm as much a learner as a leader, right?
Yes. Yes, aren't we? If we're lucky, we think of ourselves that way, because it's interesting that sometimes you go into a project and you think you know what you're going to do, and then you discover that you didn't have a notion. And
yes.
people that you're dealing with teach you what you're really going to do.
Yeah.
And I miss working in the community so much. I miss that part of engaging with people on those levels, because that really is the power of being in the room with people and hearing them speak. Some of them for the very first time ever telling their story. The first time anybody ever asked them to tell their story, and there's a power in that. And I know you know well, because that's what you're really good at pulling that story out of people. So you did What's It Like to Be a Man? Then you did Home Building Time.
Yeah. That
construction stories, City Water Tunnel, about the building of the largest public works project outside of a war project in the country. In the Western Hemisphere. And that, I will say, you kind of asked me about that early on, and I took us down a side trail. I'll just say that City Water Tunnel, and it does answer your question about how do you even get stuff. I think I ask people what's going well always, and I ask them what's not going well or what's tough, and obviously there's answers to both of those. And if we get to talk long enough about what isn't going well, the kinds of tools that most organizations like the Department of Environmental Protection or the police don't have a way to improve historic low morale. I mean, they have a barbecue, an employee barbecue. They have a Christmas toy fund. They have a PAL baseball team. These are not insignificant, but these are, if they have historic low morale, every single vulnerable person in the community is in jeopardy in some way, or at least more vulnerable, right? Yes. People of color, poor people, homeless, right? And it's just the way it is, as is the cops, personal lives, drug addiction, whatever, divorce, isolation, all that stuff. So I saw that as a key issue for those reasons. I didn't see it as, I had to learn to care about them. And I'd been targeted by cops in New York City since I've been there, like pretty directly. So I didn't have positive memories like, oh,
My friends. I would go see my friends. But anyway, but I had to battle that, because the issue, right? It's very issue based, I guess. It's very challenge, like what's possible here, very goal based. And so with the water tunnel, as soon as I heard they were building a tunnel they were blasting through rock, 250 million years old. They were down as deep as the Chrysler Building is high. The tunnel it has nothing to do with subways or sewers. It's 600, 700, 800 feet down, that they were bringing water. Who doesn't love water, right? Water's essential. We are water, right? It just seemed perfect to help New Yorkers realize at that point, when I was thinking about it in the early 90s, there was a lot of issues about our broken educational system. And I really thought, wow. And that it was a 60-year-long public works project. And I thought, New York City, any city has planned something for 60 years? Like, that's not a Band-Aid, right? You're not gonna fix our education system in 4 years, right? Or 10 years even. So I thought, wow, this is so inspirational, and it's happening. It's not made up. It's not my great idea, right? And so that started me on it. And of course, because I have a history and background in construction, I knew that the construction workers would be almost entirely men, and they were. I knew they would be hostile, and they were. I knew that they would not be taking care of themselves. They would not be taking care of safety precautions, because that's that unfortunate, notion of what being a tough guy is you don't take safety. So I had all those as actual goals. So it was all that. And I can put up with a lot of being ignored and not being treated well before I give up. So that helps.
You have worked with some of the leading arts organizations on the forefront of a lot of incredible work around the country. We've run into each other in different places. A lot of these people I worked with when I was working with the National Association of Artist-Run Organizations, Painted Bride, Diverse Works, PS 122. You navigate this world, and you come up with these huge projects. And so now you've sort of created a business out of this, right? I mean, you've created your own company, Art at Work.
Yes, it's a nonprofit. Victoria Marks, the choreographer, was leaving New York, and she asked me, and I was able to become the director of Art at Work. And so it gave a place to actually keep track of things. I mean, the distresses, the patterns, the confusions, that gets into money all the time, right? I mean, they were filled with it. And so I had already had a couple of bad experiences. And so it really let there be a real bank account, a really well-run nonprofit that could be a full partner in these agreements, like, producing. I mean, that was kind of the way. And then it developed into an opportunity to also spread the work. So I got to do projects through Art at Work with Holyoke and Boston and other communities, and just experiment. And like you said at the beginning, see, how can this work be seeded? And I went to a gazillion cities, Tucson, LA, San Francisco, just to meet. I go there for one reason, and then make sure to meet with municipal people and arts organizations, Pittsburgh. And no one, Chicago, no one bought it like, yes, let's do this. And I learned pretty quickly that every city wants to do its own thing, right?
Yes.
With its own name. And that can be beneficial, because obviously the more unique, the more interesting, right? And so cities, it took between 1 and 8 years. And obviously I had very minor, I was a minor influence in some and more of an influence in other cities, but it really has started to take root in a real way. My only challenge to the field as it's developing is to actually focus on the toughest things. Focus on racism. Don't focus on just making a street prettier or a rubbish-strewn underpass bright and cheery. It's not bad to do that, but we're not there right now. We need everybody focused on social justice and the planet as much as you can, and it hasn't gotten there yet. that much, you know.
I know that you're doing environmental and global warming projects, you know, and I know you are doing projects around racism. And you mentioned money a moment ago, and I was really intrigued by this project Abundance that you did. You know, interviewing 30 multi-millionaires and then 30 minimum wage workers, and sort of juxtaposing their stories. Can you speak to what you learned from that a bit?
Yeah, it was I just realized how confusing how confusing money is to people. I mean, class, as I say, class is different than money, obviously related. And so I just decided not to go with class, just stick with money, right?
Mm.
And the more people have, the more secretive and silent they are about it. I ended up having to, I mean, I have thousands of great stories, Alice, right? You could just imagine. So in 7 cities around the country and probably a couple extras, I got to interview these multimillionaires one-on-one. And then I got to, in the same cities, I got to interview minimum wage workers one-on-one, you know, and it was just heartbreaking and heartwarming, I got to say. And I decided to try to only interview parents because in designing the project, I tried to think of what connects these people, right? I mean, they're obviously human, all human, but what really connects them in a kind of way that can work for, you know, what gives the project more integrity, what helps them imagine each other, even though I'm not going to bring them together. I felt that was just not an intelligent thing to do for lots of reasons. And I thought parenting. Like, what is a more rewarding, harder job than parenting, right?
Yes.
So I thought, boy, they've all been through it. Whatever job they're doing, they've all been through it. So that would be a real fundamental, profound tie. So I tried to interview, for the most part, parents and bring that in a bit. But I asked them the same questions. What's your earliest memory connected with money in any way at all? What's a time in your life you had enough? What would be enough for you? What's a lie you tell yourself about money? That was a good one. Everybody had an answer.
That is a good one.
I know. And one of my favorite answers was this multimillionaire in New England. You know, I intentionally am not being confidential even years later, obviously. But and I said, what's the one thing you need to know was absolutely true in order to decide to give it all away? Like, and people would be like, what? And I said, what? I said, I know. What is the one thing you would need to know was absolutely certain? There's no doubt. It was absolutely certain, was true in order for you to decide to give it all away. And this guy looked at me and he said that I was dead.
Yes. Yeah, money is really an interesting project. I was talking to Ruby Lerner on one of the podcasts, and we were talking a lot about money and the confusion and the around money, and yeah, it is something, and it is something also artists struggle with. This idea that what they do, that what they create, is worth something, has value. That we're not starving artists; we are workers. You know, just like those construction workers, just like the people who pick up the trash and deliver the mail, even the soldiers and the police officers, and being able to see our work as being worthy work and worthy of being honored and paid for, but also that we have to do the work, you know, the way that you do it. You do it in such a deep way. When you did Abundance, the quote from Abundance is a clear-eyed, barrier-breaking, unsettling, and ultimately optimistic new play that lives on in the mind days after you see it. So it seems you really struck a chord with that. Is it possible, Marty, that people can see, are some of these projects that you've undertaken available online where people could actually plug in and see what we're talking about and have a taste of this power?
Absolutely. I was a lovely young man, Jake Stepansky, just came, and we were accidentally on quarantine together in my own house for 5 months. He came up and offered to help, and he ended up redoing the website, the Art at Work website. So it's almost every project is there, except there's some theater projects that are on martypottenger.com. So martypottenger.com has a bunch, and then Art at Work. Abundance is probably on both, but the Homeland Security is a video on YouTube. Construction Stories is there. I believe City Water Tunnel is definitely there, and there's excerpts as well, which for some people, nowadays an hour-long show is unimaginable, right? And I get it. Boy, do I get it. So I'm actually redoing some of the excerpts with a team here to just make some things shorter and get more. And so yeah, it is all online. And Art at Work is Art at Work spelled out, right? www.artwork.us, because I'm starting a project about another one after 9/11. There was a project called The People's Dialogue that I did. Boy, I wish you'd been in that, Alice. That would have been amazing. But people got to a lot happened, and we had a whole Terry Dame composed an alternate version of America the Beautiful, but people ended up, whether there was like 16 of us or 83 was, I think, the largest group, and say a big ballroom, empty ballroom room, right? So lots of room. And I was the Statue of Liberty with holding my clipboard as the book and my cell phone as the torch, right? And this is right after 9/11. I mean, 2 months later, right? Or 1 month later.
Yeah.
And then I did it through a few more times throughout the next few years. But I asked people to position themselves in relationship to me in light of their relationship to the United States, right?
Mm.
And this was after we did several listing exchanges and did other projects and stuff. So this was kind of the culmination of usually a day of being together. And what people said was, you've hit some deep chord when people say something deeply profound in 1 or 2 sentences, right?
Yes.
And so I have had memories of people standing literally the whole time nose to nose with me. I've had people on their knees kneeling. I've had a lot of people of color almost barely out of sight. I said some part of you has to be visible. So how painful and perfect and, revelatory and powerful is that? And we start by asking the people the furthest away and bring it in until we're right with the person closest to where I am. So I guess it's just so indicative of both how deeply, I want to say brilliant, but I know wise we are when given the opportunity and a meaningful question, right?
Mm.
And things are set up that people can actually have the chance to listen to their own mind and come up with, well, what is it, right?
Yes.
For me.
You've taken such a unique approach to theater. You definitely, the theater you create is nothing like what people think of when they think of Broadway, or they think of I'm going to go to the theater tonight.
Right.
And it's just so powerful. And I'm wondering, what are you doing to share this with other up and coming young artists? And what are you working on now?
I think you should be one of my models for the sharing part. I don't, I'm still making work. Obviously living off savings is nerve-wracking, but it's been nerve-wracking. Money part has been nerve-wracking my whole life. So that isn't that different. I got a good set of nerves. I say nerves like Jell-O, steel would break. So I think making sure that the website is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I give a lot of talks. Just got to do a panel here in Maine with 5 amazing artists about inclusion, equity, and diversity. So it's there, and because of the times we're living in, it's being recorded. So I guess that's more it for now. I didn't enter academia. I didn't get a teaching gig or something like that. And I think I'm so thrilled by doing this kind of work, right? I think that's I think that that's not a bad decision. And I think you probably know, because you've done so much research before this podcast, I have a huge Maine USA project coming up, and hopefully it will happen. But it's been great to work on, and, moving forward like everything, right?
Yeah, making art during this time of COVID has been an extraordinary challenge. And the Artsxchange, we've had to, we have this beautiful building, we have the theater, dance studio, galleries. We have no people. We've had to take all of our programming online. We do everything virtual, and we are really. So one of the things we were lucky to be able to do is to take our outdoor space and to begin to build outdoor performance spaces and outdoor gathering spaces. So that allowed us to begin to at least re-engage some people. But we're definitely looking forward to the day when we can swing the doors open and welcome the community back in.
Oh, people will be so happy to see everyone, but to see you too, Alan. Right?
Yeah.
We're
So I'm
definitely.
going to get you down here. You told me you have connections to Georgia.
I didn't need connections. I got a connection to you, but yes, I have family connections. My father's mother was born in Waycross, and they lived in Central Florida and Southern Georgia for a very long time. They've been a part of everything, a couple good things and a lot of bad things over the last few centuries. And for some reason, that's always meant something to me. So I've gone and visited graves over the years, even as in my 20s, when I figured out that part of my heritage.
Yeah.
It's important to me to acknowledge and do whatever work I can figure out to do about all that. I want to thank Georgia for Stacey Abrams.
Oh my goodness. We love Stacey here,
I know. But and obviously it wasn't just her, and she's clear as day that it's never one person, but it is about leadership, right?
It is. Somebody has to step out there and say this is possible.
Yeah. And then work like hell.
Yes. And you're right. There were a lot of organizations. Malika Redmond, a young woman who worked with me on the U.S. Social Forum, also had a big part in doing a lot of the grassroots work here. So it was a big effort. I definitely want to see you in Georgia, because I think, I think we moved to a small town. We actually moved out of Atlanta and moved into a little small suburb called East Point, which doesn't have a lot of art. The whole south side of the city has very little art. And being the idea of engaging with the city workers here and with the government here, I just think would be so powerful. And I want to sit at your feet and learn how we can do this. And I'm just looking forward to maybe one day you'll come down and visit us, and I just would love to host you and have you here.
Hey, woman, if you want to sit at my feet and I want to sit at your feet, then we got to get a shovel.
So, Marty, what's your advice you want to leave us with?
The fact that the folks listening and the folks that know the folks that are listening, and on and on and on, that I think our significance, our human significance, is any way you can remember that, any way you can remind someone else of theirs. I think the future is going to be amazingly challenging, and having each other and knowing, that it's human nature to want to see things go better and want to be a part of that and want to be on a team. I think that's tremendous grounding. And I've been learning a lot, Alice, from Indigenous folks in my life here in Maine mostly, and some other places. And I never have a conversation. I don't know if you have Indigenous heritage, you personally, or have explored that, but I've never come away without learning a really different way of looking at the world. Yes. That is, it's like getting to breathe better air or drink sweeter water, right?
Yes, because I think one of the things that they project and make us so aware of is how we are not the caretakers of this earth, but the earth itself is actually our caretaker. And having this reverence for this planet, this place that we are blessed to sit upon. and how can we become better stewards of that, and which is critical at this time. And one thing that this pandemic has shown us are a lot of the fissures in our society, in our communities, in ourselves. And I know that there will be some powerful stories and lessons to come out of this period of quiet. And I stand with you in this hope that this will lead us to something even greater and even better than we even imagined before this happened to us, because it's allowed us to become more deeply seated in our understanding of ourselves and the reality of the world around us, you know. And I congratulate you in what you do with theater to help bring that to the forefront, to share that with people, to make them laugh and smile and question, and to look at the lives of each of us, because you said all work is honorable work, and all workers work hard, and it is workers who hold this world up and make life every day possible. And I'm proud as an artist to be a part of that working class.
This is when we need music.
This sounded a little bit like a sermon, didn't it?
No, it sounded fabulous. Are you kidding? I'm going to listen to it more than once. I just wish we had just the right music to go, because that's it. You got it. Yes.
So thank you so much for giving me some of your time. I appreciate it. I'm going to invite all the listeners to please go visit Marty Pottenger's website. It's martypottenger.org or com, Marty?
Com.
martypottenger.com, and then artatwork.us, where you can see some of the fabulous work we've been talking about. You can read some of the reviews and hear some things from Marty in her own words about these projects. And thank you so much, old friend.
Big love, my dear.
Big love to you.